Anyway,
Okay, well, all good, Ty?
yeah.
Okay, sorry. So welcome everyone to the 6th Reoccurring TELx Council meeting. Again, just to go through some kind of the details like every other council has before. These reoccurring council meetings provide several critical functions to our governance. They help provide transparency to the community. They help create structure for our forum. They provide authors the ability to present their proposals to the council and community. It allows the council and community to review, debate, refine these proposals so they can get to a place where we have consensus and mutual understanding. They provide a medium for regular TELx ecosystem updates. They ensure consistent communication between council members and the community, and allows the community to directly engage in Q&A with us, the council members. So the TELx Council is a local governance organization with authority over and duties towards TELx operational rules, system health, and social well-being. The overview is to accept, develop, and vote on TELx IPs, to change or introduce new elements to TELx, to alter TELx harvesting rules, and is responsible for generally representing the interests of and informing their constituency in matters pertaining to TELx. So primary duties for the TELx Council is required to 1, plan, finance, and coordinate implementation of improvements to the TELx ecosystem. 2, regulate the flow of TEL issuance through TELx to be harvested by liquidity miners. 3, introduce, alter, and enforce TELx operational rules, including harvesting, information, and communication, maintenance, and construction. And in 4, informs miners of the activities and outcomes related to TELx and results of any snapshot votes. Obviously, these snapshot votes are a requirement for all council members, and in order for a proposal to move forward, there needs to be a 5 out of 6 majority vote, with all 6 members voting within a 5-day span from when it is posted to snapshot. So with that being said, Ty, I'm wondering if I can maybe pass it to you. I know you're usually pretty good at taking notes from previous meetings to kind of recap from 2 weeks ago in early January. And then we can kind of get into the rest of kind of where things are at on the TELx side of things.
No. I didn't actually take any notes last time.
Of course.
And I haven't actually had time to review the old. I hate hearing myself speak, because I don't think I sound like I sound, and I haven't even reviewed the YouTube vid from the last one. So I was just faffing through my notepad, because I do have a notepad that I keep for these meetings, and I haven't got anything to offer.
Okay, no worries. I typically don't like listening to myself either. So any of the stuff that we do, I never try to listen to myself over again unless, there are points I want to pick up. But I think from a high level, I know, Ty, we kind of talked about, your proposal, kind of being put on the back burner as there's more kind of development work on that front. There's been obviously some communication between yourself, myself, and some of the town members as well, just to understand, the complexity of the work, understanding how budgeting is going to work, and how, we're going to be paying for the work that is needed to put these proposals forward. So I think at a high level, that was kind of, a recap of kind of our proposals and where they're at. And then I know, Mike, we talked about kind of these new pools on base, how they're going to get mapped, what kind of pools we want to look at, whether or not we start with incentivizing and stuff like that. I'm not sure if there's any other points anybody wants to bring up in terms of a recap. But I'll leave it open for now, just to give anybody the chance to speak. If not, then we can kind of just continue with the rest of the agenda points.
Yeah, I can just bring you up to date on where I'm at with the SAP proposal. Leo got back to me and asked for a little modification because I had removed the words that referred it to the Compliance Council. Because where we got to was that it probably didn't really need compliance. But basically, he said he thinks it does, even in its sort of watered down version. So I added a sentence back in. So I haven't, and Leo's working on the spec, but we haven't really progressed that because there's been so much else going on, and I suppose Leo's under the gun on a number of fronts. So that's where we're at with that. That's very much in the background, and so yeah, that's it from me on that one, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I don't have too much to update on my end either. I think where we kind of left it off 2 weeks ago was breaking my proposal down into a couple of different phases. The first one being kind of just focusing on doing analytics, getting that up and running with all of the data and pull calls from Polygon Scan, just so that we can start monitoring and assessing that. And then phase 2 was going to be kind of implementing more of a dashboard and having a little bit of a better UX UI on the TELx website. I was kind of waiting to hear back on phase 1, I think, from Grant in terms of cost estimates, or at least some timing estimates. I haven't heard back from him yet. Maybe bad on me that I haven't reached out, but I know last week for me, I was away for a conference, so I didn't really have a lot of time to be touching base. But what I'll do in the next day or two is I'll touch base with Grant and just get an idea of kind of where they're at from that perspective. Unless, Mike, you have an update that you can share from the team side of things. But really for me, I think the next step is just understanding, what costs are going to be associated, how much time is going to be needed to kind of get everything set up and running on Dune. And I even did update my proposal to include some of the different metrics that we kind of wanted to follow, not only on the entirety of the TELx ecosystem, but also for the individual pools. One thing that I think we can also adjust to is now that we're talking about base, we're actively looking and trying to promote a little bit more of the liquidity on mainnet as well. So maybe just some metrics following each kind of different chain and kind of where liquidity levels are from that perspective. So I think we should add that into kind of some of the data and analytics as well. But yeah, for me, really, just to reiterate, I'm just waiting on the TAO to get back to us, really on just understanding kind of cost implication, timing implications before we kind of get things going.
Right. I think that's where that lands. I think for as far as that goes, I think we also, I don't know if we discussed this or not. Maybe I discussed it with Kerr offline. Was we needed a contractor, probably need a contractor hire a web developer for TELx. You know what I mean? Like to do this, because it's kind of a full-time, a contracted job. So we just need to figure out whether that's somebody internally or somebody externally that we can do that type of work. So that's something for consideration. But to bring you all up to date on the base situation, is I got the token over there. I've actually moved some TEL tokens over past weekend and some Ethereum over to base. I did set up a liquidity pool around the current strike price. I did like 30% plus or minus on a strike price of half a cent, 0.005 something. And then that's because that's where we were sitting at the time. And then, of course, Monday came around and we got the regulatory approval from Nebraska, which is a big deal. Congrats to all you guys.
Huge deal.
Yeah. Really cool to be a part of this. Telcoin is going to become kind of front and center in a lot of different ways. So that's really cool. But as a result of that, the price moved up a little bit, and there's no activity in that liquidity pool because you can't search the token. You would have to go in and you have to know the smart contract or the contract address and go and enter it in to swap into a token that you think might be Telcoin, because it doesn't show the logo or any sort of affirming material that would suggest that it is Telcoin. So there was a couple of little aggregator trades that went through there, but it was like dust. I think it was probably, I don't even know why that happened. It was like Ethereum to wrap to Ethereum. So I don't know. I'm not really sure how I got any fees, but there was some less than $1 worth of fees there. And but because the price had moved, but the price hadn't moved, and there was no trades in that pool, I just removed the liquidity rather than suffering impermanent loss and going out of range. So,
Yep. Was the pool on base, Mike, like a V2 or V3?
I set up as a V4 pool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So then you're going to have to educate us on these hooks and ladders, or snakes and ladders, whatever we were talking about.
I don't know if we know, like, if we need those for any particular reason. I think there is some gas efficiencies with V4 that I was reading about. There's no downside to setting it up on V4, I don't think. I think any aggregator would pick up V4 pools. Obviously, KyberSwap had already picked up this pool somehow. And so most anybody who wants to trade TEL would not even really realize that, through an aggregator, wouldn't realize that they were using Uniswap. But there isn't any available liquidity right currently on base because it's just sort of sitting on the sidelines. Because I really want, and we did submit the paperwork or the application to BaseScan to have with the token logo, the company data, milestones, etc., to get us from this unknown status to at least a known status or a good status or whatever however they classify it. But as of this morning, there was still no follow-up. We've been asking for a follow-up, but they just say we're under extremely heavy volume, under extremely heavy loads trying to process through all these requests for new tokens listed on base because there's, as you guys know, there's hundreds of shit coins being minted on base every day. You get them airdropped to your wallets. So base is a bit of a cesspool for that type of stuff, which kind of stinks, but it is what it is. And so now, like a legitimate, top 200 token with 6 years worth of history is now lumped in there with a bunch of fart coins and whatever else to get their logo approved, our logo approved, and for it to appear properly on Base Network. And who knows how long that'll take? I would hope it would have been done already, but it's not complete. So I don't think we can offer a viable liquidity pool until that happens because, it just doesn't make any sense. If it's not easy for somebody to go on to their Coinbase wallet and on Base Network and see the TEL token and buy it, then there's really not much sense in having a liquidity pool until that is, it's viable.
That totally makes sense. I'd say let's continue to go kind of step by step. Let's make sure all the ducks are in a row before we start making adjustments or anything to that. So I guess
there is liquidity there ready to be deployed. And I kind of feel here. I want to get your guys' opinion on this. Think once we get the token updated and it's appropriate and it's safe and people can trade it, because there is another TELcoin token on base. Believe it or not.
Right. Maybe we could I'd love to help you out on this, and I'd love to get some familiarity with Base, and I don't even know myself how to move tokens onto Base. So maybe we could have a wee session after this offline, maybe 10 minutes, and you could run me through the process, and then I can start familiarizing myself and maybe help you out a little bit on that, because I'm quite interested and I've got the time. So yeah,
because also when we set up a pool, it's going to require, unless we do a full range pool, it's going to require more than one provider of concentrated liquidity to be monitoring their pool value. Because let's say, for example, I put all of my liquidity that's on base into a concentrated liquidity pool that goes out of range. Well, then I'm all in Ethereum or I'm all in TELcoin, and I can't swap through that pool, and that pool goes dead. And so we have to have somebody that's maybe providing full range, and somebody but that'll sort of happen naturally as it does on Ethereum mainnet and all these other V3 concentrated liquidity pools. You get enough users, and it sort of sorts itself out, if you will. But just having one guy in a pool never works. Because,
I have some spare
yeah.
ETH TEL to play with, so yeah, I can help. I can help there if you need it.
Yeah, and I have a laundry list of personal friends and volunteers that are current providers of TELx that are willing to step in there when the time's right and provide liquidity. So we'll get some liquidity there that's useful when the time is right. And I hope that time is soon. I was actually hoping to have it done before the bank approval, but that kind of came quicker than we thought. But
yeah, if you have time after this meeting, we can go into or we can just stay on this line and just run me through it if you've got time.
Yeah, no problem. But that's it. That's the update on base. So I don't know. I hope we can get that going, and then we can then we can promote it. We can even put it up on your Andrew. Like, you're a good source of media for this type of thing. But we could tweet it out, and members of TELx Council could say new pool on base, blah 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 blah. And the association could tweet about it, and then maybe we could start to get some volume in there, and then we can evaluate the metrics. And then maybe it never needs incentives, but maybe it does.
Well, that's where I was just going to go and just understand kind of where we are collectively, that when and if, not if, but when things get started on base, do we want to deprecate? I think the first one that we're kind of looking at is that DFX pool. So is the goal to maybe, deprecate that pool and flip those incentives to the base pool? And is it only the one pool that, you're thinking, Mike? Do you think it would be beneficial to have maybe multiple pools? If we're looking TEL ETH, TEL USDC, do you think it makes sense to have multiple like that? Or do you think it would just make sense to kind of start off with ETH?
Might make sense. I'm trying to think through that as far as what the arbitrage opportunities would be. If you only have one pool on a network, how does arbitrage work? So yeah, having multiple pools, obviously you have assets pooled against different assets. So the prices, as they fluctuate, people will take advantage of the differences, and that's how things always end up coming back to the mean. So yeah, I think it would be maybe advantageous to have two. I think the game companies would pool when they launch their token. They would pool some assets, some of their tokens with TEL on base, So yeah, I think that will kind of grow once we have the token properly identified, and we can actually start to do those things.
Yeah, and I was just thinking to get things going on base. If we're talking about deprecating the DFX pool, and if we're going to do multiple pools on base, then however many pools we decide to do on base, we could just take those incentives from DFX and divide it evenly among. It may not be as much as a single pool that we're seeing now on Polygon, but at least it's something to at least nudge people to go outside of the return that we're seeing on potential fees, right? Obviously we know I started adding the Uniswap V3 pool into the daily updates, and even today, 400% APR just on fees. If you're continually staying within range, obviously at that point we don't need to incentivize that. I don't think. To the point that you made, in previous meetings, but maybe initially to get some liquidity, maybe it's maybe we do it for a quarter, 2 quarters, something like that on base, just to get things going, see how it goes, and then if we need to draw back the incentives and utilize them somewhere else to continue to grow the ecosystem, then I'm open to doing that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think we could, even while we're another consideration just to lob out there is opening up a V3 or V4 pool on Polygon with the TEL token. Once we figure out the incentivization and how we're going to do that for LPs that are in range, then we can because that pool would also help us to provide liquidity to the app for trading. For app traders, if we can take incentives from the DFX pool or the balancer pool or whatever and put them in some TEL V3 pool even on Polygon, because we have the plumbing there already.
Yeah.
And we can make more, better trade value for our app users instantaneously. So that's something to consider as well.
Well, that would lower slippage significantly too, right? Because if you have that
It would.
concentrated liquidity, it should help from that perspective.
Right. So if you have $500,000 of liquidity in a DFX pool and you concentrate that in a V3 or V4 pool on Polygon, it'll act just like the mainnet one does, where the fees will be immense. I did it. I've done it. I did that pool. I did like 70K worth of liquidity in that Polygon V3 pool for TEL and Ethereum, and it was crazy how much it was just like the mainnet pool. The fees were pretty ridiculous. So because all the plumbing is there for trades to just route through there via the Telcoin app. So the Telcoin app would actually be trading through that pool instantly. So, and we're having some pretty high volumes on Polygon now. So, anyway, I get a little long-winded, so I'm going to shut myself down here and let you guys talk. But those are just all things that are going through my head as far as how do we best provide the least amount of slippage for traders that want to get into Telcoin. That's what I want to do.
Can I just say, this is really exciting, and I'm excited, but we need to follow the process. We need to pull it back, and we need to anchor this discussion somehow before we get too far down.
Sure.
The technical details. We really need this wrapped around a proposal because what I see we're doing at the moment is just evaluating something as a prior step to writing a proposal to actually say, let's actively propose setting up a pool on Base, and this is the coins we're proposing, and this is the reward structure, if any, and this is what we're going to deprecate. So all this needs to be wrapped around a proposal. And we're still in a very early application evaluation phase. So I'm just trying to curb everybody's excitement a little bit and say we need to follow process on this, because there may be some members in the community that we serve that don't want that to happen, or members on the council that don't want this to happen. And we're getting really carried away with ourselves because it's exciting and it's in our areas of interest. But it's kind of step back a bit.
I think we'll continue to follow the process, Ty. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think we're just engaging now in kind of thoughts and discussion. And again, part of these meetings are to get that kind of consensus before we start putting things to proposal. Again, between us or the community members who are here or people that listen later on, we'll definitely follow all those processes and putting it up to the forum and giving people enough time to review and comment with their feedback as well. And again, we can refine the proposal down the road based off that feedback from either us internally on the council or from the community. I just don't want you thinking we're not gonna go through the proper procedures and protocols, because again, for me, we got to follow that, and I'm totally with you on that.
I'm not impairing that at all, but I'm hearing everybody talking and I'm thinking, whoa, let's that's all I'm saying. I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying let's remember the process.
Yeah, no, that's very much appreciated. Mike, you brought up too the fact about how do we look at V3 and if we're going to incentivize a V3 pool. I think it was Will last call that brought up whether or not we relate it to the fees. It seems like that's the simplest and easiest way to do it. I don't know if there's any other protocols that are incentivizing V3 pools in a different way that we can talk and discuss. But I would be open. Again, I didn't really know before during our last call, and thanks to Will for the education on that side of things. But from my perspective, if the fees are where the concentrated liquidity is coming from, then that's where the incentivization should be coming from if we do decide to do that.
Right. I mean, that's just the natural way to incentivize it. I mean, because that is amount of liquidity times concentration of liquidity times time and range is fees. that would represent 3 fees. So you can just do that naturally over a set period of time. I agree with that.
Yeah, I would assume like once a week, maybe we do it or whatever it is, because that's going to have to be like a script that has to be run. And then like, would that have to be like not necessarily audited, but like proofed before the incentives kind of get pushed out? And then second to that, I know we talked about not doing like airdrops and making sure that everything is claimable, again, for tax purposes and all that kind of stuff,
Right.
depending on what jurisdiction you're in. I just wanted to confirm that if we do decide to go that route and, there is a script that's run, say, once a week, that we can take those incentives and push them to another contract that is claimable by each individual liquidity miner.
All these things are possible, yeah. So that's what I've been told. I don't know anything about writing smart contracts, but yes, my understanding is that all those things are possible. We just have to cater it to what we decide, which I think is a fee-based incentive structure. So, we do want to make it claimable. Yeah, we want to make it. We want to use it. We don't want to get back into airdropping. I don't think we want to do it properly.
Okay, no, that's good. Tim, Matt, Will, you guys have any comments on anything we've discussed so far?
No, none for me. I understand where Ty's coming from. I've been just thinking that I'm glad we're getting out in front of it so that when the proposal does come through, it's a snap vote and we can move quickly on it, because I think that's important in this process.
No, I agree.
I don't have anything to add to what has been said, but I have a suggestion. We struggle to find funds to develop what we want on TELx and so on. And how about we give a bit less of TEL as incentives and constitute ourselves let's say a wallet where we can keep some TELs, we can sell it then and pay for development without having to go through the Treasury Council.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea too. And we kind of had a little bit of a conversation about that yesterday on the TAN side of things too, where obviously we know we have an allotment right now of 200 million TEL that we have at our disposal. Maybe we take 10% of that, and that is the basket for maybe development and marketing, in terms of funds. And then at least it's a set amount that we know. And then at least from that perspective too, the 90% that we have, the 180 million, that would be just on a regular basis for TELx, and it wouldn't fluctuate kind of week to week or month to month. I'm open to that if everybody else is, but I think it's just understanding kind of like that metric. For me, I would rather do it on kind of a percentage based, because I think as we continue to go, through the years, obviously that budget is not always going to be 200, and it's going to fluctuate, up and down depending on what the Treasury has, in the safe. But yeah, I'm open to doing that.
Yeah, I like that idea.
So I haven't caught up with that discussion yet, but that so that 200 million TEL, that's for all our work within TELx, including development, marketing, issuance of rewards.
Well, right now it's just for the issuance of the rewards. But what Will is basically proposing is that we take some of those rewards and then we have some funds available for ourselves to do what we think is necessary, whether that's developmental work, marketing work, whatever, instead of having to go through the Treasury to get extra funds, so to speak.
So there's not a generic pool for development?
Well, everything would go through the Treasury, and that's kind of what the Treasury Council is there for. So any over and above spend over our budgeted amount through, what Parker put together not too long ago for the year 2 allocations, anything over and above that 200 for us on the TELx side would have to be approved through the Treasury and the Platform Council to that respect. But ultimately, it's going to be a decision for the Treasury to say, hey, is the extra use of these funds worth it? Yes or no kind of thing. And then obviously if they say no, then we're kind of forced to, do what Will is suggesting in order to fund our initiatives and proposals. Or the Treasury decides like, okay, that's fair, that's warranted, and we can push through. I think at the end of the day too, we want to obviously maximize the incentives, but I think as we look at this as a business, there are other avenues that we can use those funds to increase TVL exposure, education, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great idea then. Yeah.
Does anybody have any thoughts on like the amounts? Again, whether it's percentage based or a certain number? I know we kind of just brought this up, but
Yeah, I think a percentage, like you said, is the good way to go. So it can be kind of automated. I don't know if we would need to open a new safe and route some of the TELx council wallet to this new safe. I don't know how it would work, or if we could just pick some of the TEL in the TELx safe and use it for development. But I guess 10% of the issuance each year is good. And I mean, we are awarded 200 million TEL for the year. But as you said at the beginning of the meeting, we have different duties, and part of these duties is to develop the website and educate people and so on. And so it's only fair that some of the TEL issuance we get every year goes to that particular thing.
okay. Well, Will, did you want to take maybe the lead on kind of maybe putting a little bit of a proposal together for something like that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll try and draft something this week, or maybe early next week.
I think it might be a good idea too to have a separate safe as well, just like a TELx kind of marketing development safe, and then for whatever TEL isn't used within that year, it basically just rolls over into the next year.
Yeah, would be great.
Yeah, so we always use our budget. Yeah, if you don't use it, you lose it. So
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Just to put it into context, 10% or 10 million TEL is about $70,000 US. I don't know how far that goes in terms of paying smart contract guys and how quickly they can work and all that business, but yeah, 10 million is about 70,000 US.
Well, it'd be 20. It'd be 20 if we did 10% because there's 200.
I thought we were
200
talking
million.
about 10 million. Sorry. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
That's okay.
20. Oh, 140 grand. Yeah, I'll do it. Right.
You were good at 70.
I was going to say, yeah. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Anybody else have any? Yeah, go ahead, Tim. Go.
Yeah, so just going back to the point of process, I know we've gone off on a couple of tangents here, but the original point here was Mike's talking about the additional pools on base. But Mike did put a proposal forward for that, and it was enhanced by Parker's comments as well, I think. Is that not the proposal we're talking about that we're now putting forward? Because you said that we should have a proposal for it.
I don't think we formally have a proposal from Mike on getting pools on base, but like at that point, like I don't know if we necessarily need a proposal to get a pool on base because it's not incentivized at this point. If we plan on incentivizing it, then I think we need a proposal, but I could be wrong on that.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, Tim. What are you saying? You think we should just run the proposal because we think it?
No. I'm saying that I've seen a proposal, whether that be in a different forum that you put together. So we're using that as, I don't know, a prototype, a skeleton, whatever it is to build upon. But we don't need a new proposal because that is the proposal regarding putting the new pool on base. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we could put the proposal up for a vote before we create the pool on base or after. I was just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know which one should come first. I was just kind of in my mind. I was like, I want to try to prove out the ability to do it and then propose it so that it goes more swiftly, rather than proposing it and then getting all these hiccups along the way. And then I don't know. That's just my personal preference. But what do you guys think?
Well, that's good for me as a proposal, what you've already done. But if it needs adding to or amending, then that's all part of the process.
I think the evaluation phase first before the proposal. So I think what we're doing is wise, ironing out the kinks, coming up with the questions that need to be addressed in the proposal and the things that need further discussion and decisions on. It's really difficult to get bogged down in writing a proposal with a lot of unknown questions that need to be answered. So what we're doing, I think, is the right approach, which is a little bit of play in base and finding out how it all works together and what the ups and downs of these new V4 pools are, and then we can elucidate that in a proposal. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm okay either way. Again, I think from my perspective, again, we're not adjusting anything from the TELx side of things by just, us actively working on getting a pool on base. But I think, obviously in terms of the incentivization of it, that needs to go through the TELxIP process. But maybe we can talk to a little bit more of Parker Grant and get their understanding on that side of it too, just to make sure, again, we're following the proper procedures and protocols to make sure that everything is aligned. But either way, I'm good. Okay. Next, I brought it up as well as kind of just like the next thing we're talking about, different chains. When I was looking at the numbers, and I kind of posted in our TELx Council chat too, just Solana or whether it's BNB, just different chains and kind of looking at whether or not we want to kind of start looking there. I know not a lot of people here are particularly intrigued about getting on Solana, and I'll be honest, neither am I, just with the kind of meme culture that they have going there. But it is staggering the difference in terms of TVL and volume and, the flow of everything that they have going over there. I just feel like it's a missed opportunity for us, A, to increase TVL, B, get some more exposure to, maybe some different, individuals who aren't aware of Telcoin. So I think as much as we don't want to associate, let's say with Solana or, that kind of culture, I feel that it's just a missed opportunity just because of, the numbers speaking for themselves in terms of the difference between kind of where Solana is even versus, every other chain, even, mainnet.
And maybe I don't know if anybody here can answer this question, but with these different chains, just like TEL at the moment on Polygon, Solana, a base, when a smart contract is written, is it all written in the same code line, or are there different code bases for the different chains? The reason I'm asking that is that if we're dealing with user funds or DeFi pools, then they need to probably be audited before we go live. And how difficult is it to make sure we are not opening ourselves up on these other chains to exploits that we maybe have missed because of the different code bases that potentially we would have to use on these different chains. So if you see where I'm coming from, we need probably to get things audited. We don't want to expose ourselves to any sort of exploits at this crucial time in our TEL growth.
So you're talking about like just like you're talking about mapping the token to that blockchain?
Well, I don't know how it works, but if we're talking about writing different smart contracts to handle different things on different chains, is it the same code base that all these chains use, or are there different code bases, and therefore are there different audit processes that we need to go through to make sure anything we do on these new chains is secure and bottled down tightly? Because any exploit anywhere would be huge reputational damage to the TEL ecosystem.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That would be probably a good question. I don't know, Mike, if you can answer that, but maybe for like Grant or Amir.
Yeah, I don't know if the code is different. I do know that the biggest exploit risk is always in bridging from one network to another. That's why, I've never even bridged to Solana. I bought some wrapped Solana on Polygon or whatever, or mainnet, maybe, I can't remember. But that's where the biggest vector of attack happens is in bridging, and then bridges that are set up as dummies decoys and things like that, where people can funnel their funds somewhere that they don't know what they're doing, because that's where when you go. That's why I do like the idea of just staying on Ethereum and Ethereum side chains, especially since we're also building our own Ethereum side chain, and we're going to be, TELx Council will be responsible for trying to get liquidity and promote liquidity and swaps on our new chain, right? So I think we do run the risk of getting a little bit too thin if we're trying to be everywhere. And then we have more surface area for attack and bridging problems and all those other shenanigans. So I'm not a huge fan of trying to go to a different network, but we could. I would support it if we wanted to try. I wouldn't mind trying it myself, but I wouldn't want to promote it to others because I don't want to lose anybody else's money. If that makes sense.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all with Ty and Mike on this one. I think we should stick to EVM chains and explore different layer twos. And how about the integration with the XLR network? Will the XLR network allow us to explore through other layer ones, or will it all be just EVM compatible? Mike, do you have an answer for that? Yeah.
I don't have any insight in that. I could find out probably. Write that down.
Well, I think once we integrate into Axelar, though, that's going to be through Telcoin Network. And if that's the case, then do we have to then move all the pools to the Telcoin Network, or is it going to have compatibility through Axelar to access those pools on different chains too?
Yeah, it's gonna have. I mean, I hope so. I hope that what that means is it's going to be a multi-chain sort of scenario, because initially if we open up Telcoin Network, we have validators validating it, but there's no wrapped Bitcoin on it. You have to create the liquidity on there. It has to be, other tokens will have to come onto our network.
Yep.
And so we'll have to I don't that's kind of beyond my scope of knowledge, but that's something we'll have to grow with as it starts to happen.
Okay.
Maybe we should have a side discussion with Grant on what his thoughts are on this whole, how when mainnet comes live, how do the dynamics and mechanics of pools work? Because I'm not clear either on what happens when mainnet goes live. In the Axelar bridge, I hear that mentioning, but I don't know much about it. So maybe a bit of education for us on the future would put us in a good place.
Yeah, I would agree, I guess, with Ty, with what you're saying. Okay, well, it seems like we're all not developers and have all the answers to some of the questions we have. So maybe we should try and invite, Grant or Leo or Amir into one of these conversations so that we can have a little bit more of a collaborative conversation and have a little bit more answers to some of these questions that we have. So maybe I'll reach out to Grant too, just because I talked to him about the analytics side of things anyway. So I'll see if he can make himself available for the next call on the 19th to kind of help us.
That would be great. That's a great idea.
Yeah,
I did get up this morning and send a message to like the Telecoin Labs crew, and I think they're all busy. I think I procrastinated too long on trying to get somebody to join us, so that's my bad.
that's all good. With the news that dropped this week, I think that's fair that they've got their hands full. Okay, we're coming up on basically 10-15 minutes left. I always just keep putting in there incentive distribution allocation. I don't think we need to touch on that again. I think we can, as we get further down the road and we have to talk about, having more pools or, adjusting how we do that, we can talk about it then. We don't need to bring it up now. So at this time, then maybe we can open it up to the audience if there's any questions from there. I know Steve did make a comment before he dropped off maybe 20 minutes ago, and he just basically suggested that we kind of use maybe some of the bones from the TELx community website for education purposes and stuff like that. So we've got some stuff that we did for that we can maybe use as a starting point, but then obviously we can kind of enhance and develop that as we go on the educational side of things, which will be kind of the next phase, I think, after we get the analytics kind of up and going. So I'll open it up to see if anybody wants to chime in with any comments or questions, and if not, then maybe we can wrap this one up a little bit early.
Yeah, I'd like to come back on the Mike's proposition about opening a V3 pool on Polygon, and I think it's a great idea. Actually, I mean, we could create massive liquidity for Telcoin application users, and I guess that would be great overall. I'm not quite comfortable with how could I say it? I feel like V3 Uniswap is very complicated, and it's not really comfortable for beginner liquidity providers, I'd say. But we have to face it. We want to make TEL as liquid as possible on Polygon, and I think it would be a great idea to leverage V3 pools for that.
Right. And I don't think we even need a proposal for that. The pool's already there. All we would really actually need to do there is promote it, put some liquidity in there, and then put it up on, it could be another one of Andrew's pools that he puts up. And people are driven by incentives, they'll go and try it. And if they're not, they won't.
Yeah, so just looking at I was just looking at it now. Sorry, go on.
What asset is it paired with?
So right now it's paired. Well, there's a couple different ones, but the one that has the most liquidity is wrapped ETH. So right now it's got 4.6K. So again, nothing huge, but to
Welcome
to Mike's
to the stage, Amir.
Oh, there we go. Well, now we're going to talk for another half an hour. But yeah, so right now on Polygon, on Uniswap, V3 pool, there is one with wrapped ETH that has a TVL of 4.6. There is one with Polygon as well with $300, but it doesn't look like it has any volume flowing through it. So even the one on Polygon, it looks like the last 24-hour volume was around 15K. So almost 3 times the amount of the liquidity of the volume flowing through there. So
cool.
Can you guys hear me all right?
We can. Yes.
Hey, Amir, how's it going?
Good. How are
I'm
you
going to give
guys?
you the summary of where we're at. We're trying to figure out as far as we're setting up this pool on base. You've been helping me out with that. Thank you for that.
course.
We're still waiting on that sort of token to get updated so that we can properly use it on Uniswap. So it's properly identified. But we were just talking about smart contracts and then how to incentivize a concentrated liquidity pool. And in our sort of small-minded way of looking at it, we sort of would loosely associate, or we would maybe associate incentivization of a concentrated liquidity pool with the fees generated by a liquidity provider. Meaning that if you're not in range, you're not getting incentives, you're not getting fees or incentives.
Mhm.
But if you are in range, then you would be getting fees and incentives for your risk in your liquidity and how close you put it to the strike price on the trades.
Yeah.
And that's doable.
So wait, hold on. I'm so sorry. Repeat that. It cut out a little bit. Repeat that last part again.
Would we be able to create a contract that is claimable like on a weekly basis or monthly, but however frequently, that would associate TEL incentives, let's say 10 million TEL over a period of 30 days, whatever it is, that would associate TEL incentives to, it's much less than that. Let's say 1 million TEL over 30 days, but that would be associated with the fees that were generated in that Uniswap pool.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Okay. That's not even that. It's not too hard to do. So when the essentially the way it works is that when the pool tokens are generated, it's their proportionality, their stake in the liquidity that's in the pool. So as the trades are going on, those tokens that you have essentially just become more valuable. There's not like a constant distribution. So if someone just holds those tokens, the idea is that because of that, those fees and stuff generated and revenue generated through people swapping through the pool, that token is just worth more now. So with the staking contracts that we currently have in TELx, that's already the way it works. When someone takes their funds and stakes it in there, they are accumulating rewards that they can claim at any time. It's like on a per block rate. Right now we set the staking contracts monthly. But you are getting your block rewards on a block-to-block basis. And if at any point in time you want to unstake, your staked tokens will be exactly the same that you staked. You remove them, and because since they've essentially been adding liquidity at the same time, it doesn't matter that they weren't in your possession. They are still worth more than, because of people doing trades and things of that nature. And when I say worth more, obviously with crypto, prices go up and down like crazy. It's relative to the tokens inside the pool. Not that there's no risk, but that's when I say it's worth more. So our current infrastructure on TELx does exactly what you're talking about. We also used to have another system called generalized incentives, in which that was an airdrop distribution over every period of time, and a person's wallet just maintained possession of those staked the liquidity tokens. But at the time, we did that for a while, and the community essentially said, hey, we like the staking contract version more. That's the one where you can claim rewards at any time. We are open to suggestions if there's other things, but our current infrastructure supplies exactly what you're asking for.
Okay. Now, specifically, there's a slight difference between the pools that we have on Balancer now, which are full range pools, and the fees that are generated automatically make the LPT token more valuable, versus a Uniswap V3 or V4 pool where you pool your liquidity and you can concentrate the liquidity within 20% of the price of TEL versus ETH, or however tight you want to make it. And then there are on Uniswap app, you will see your liquidity and how close you are to the pegs of each of your price range that you've established. And then you also see uncollected fees. So the fees are sent into a separate contract that you collect. And you can collect them without removing your liquidity. But the LPT token does not change in value does not necessarily become more valuable. I guess it depends on what happens with the tokens in your pool.
Sure.
But
But if I'm not mistaken, Mike, just sorry to interrupt. Is it not for V3? Don't you get an NFT? You don't get liquidity pool tokens.
That's
Don't
right.
you get an
NFT versions are NFT.
Based
Yes,
off
you get.
of
Yeah,
your
that's right. You
concentrated
get an
liquidity
NFT.
position?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, from that perspective, then Amir, like, is it possible to like track like over the week, like what the fees were for that week, and then if the three of us are in the pool, and Mike, garnered 60%, I got 20%, and you got 20%, would we be able to run a script to distribute the incentives in that same fashion at that same percentage?
Yeah. That shouldn't be a problem. Like I said, part of the reason we migrated away from a script version before, which already it wasn't built around NFTs, so it's not like it would have worked out of the box, but was more closely aligned with that, is just because that's what the community wanted. They wanted something on the staking contract or whatever. But yeah, tracking things of like that is definitely possible. Not to mention, we already have other incentives projects that we are considering that rely on off-chain scripts, and we've built infrastructure around that. So I can't, I'm not a member of the TELx Council. I'm on the platform council, so I can't speak directly as like intent and what the plan is. But we already have some infrastructure or a developing infrastructure that will do certain calculations like that. So it would take some work because we'd have to accommodate specifically Uniswap and things of that nature. And right now it's built around closer to the ERC20 version. But yes, that would be possible.
Okay, and then further to that, would we be able to put, like, if we do the script on a weekly basis, would we be able to put those incentives associated to those wallets based off the fees into a separate contract for them to claim when they want to, so that we can have that functionality of that claim option as well?
Yes. So on the Telcoin application, so not part of the Telcoin organization, but the Telcoin application, they have a staking contract in which people can stake. And in that staking contract, it works in a way in which you add these little plugins, and the plugins are essentially what retrieve the funds. And we do distributions through there. So, okay, so-and-so address is now has now earned 50 TEL in rewards, and it sits there on a separate address that they can claim at any time. You don't actually, our infrastructure, the Telcoin infrastructure, requires you to stake in order to get funds, but that's not actually required to do funds in this other way. So if we have a script that, we'll say, creates a payload, and that payload is just a distribution, this address gets this amount of tokens, we can do exactly that. We would add it to this plugin, the funds would sit there, and at any point in time, someone's wallet, and this is not a Telcoin wallet, it would be any EOA, would be able to say, I would like to claim these rewards. So that way, I know taxes go beyond me, but I know that sometimes, like, when you claim and when it's distributed to your wallet, it is a claimable or a taxable event.
Exactly, yeah.
So yeah, we would
why
want to do that.
To try to do it in like that kind of tandem way, where we're running the script to understand what the fees are and how to allocate those incentives on that week-to-week basis, but then also give that functionality and flexibility to those individual liquidity miners to claim those incentives at their leisure, again, depending on tax purposes and everything like that. Okay, so that sounds promising. I think, Will, you had a question before I jumped in, so sorry about that.
Yeah, Amir, do you think it would be possible to accrue rewards or incentives on a block-to-block basis, like it is done today on TELx with the UniV3 NFTs?
I honestly, I don't know. We don't use the NFTs directly, so I don't want to speak too much on what's possible. With the off-chain script, I'm confident. I would need to do some more research for the NFTs to accurately answer your question. Part of the issue with the block-to-block is that you don't have with the incentives is that where the flow of a transaction goes. On-chain, if the flow of a transaction does not pass through your contract, you don't necessarily have control on what's monitored or whatever. A separate contract can't simply know what's going on in token transfers elsewhere, but off-chain, obviously, we can. That's how we know funds move. So block-to-block, on-chain, like the NFT, I can't say for certain. I can look into that, and I can let you know. I just don't know right now.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sorry.
Hey,
that we couldn't be more
Amir,
helpful.
I'm going to
Yeah.
put just one more quick question, and you may not know the answer, but that's okay. V4 Uniswap introduces something called hooks, which I don't know if you know what that is, but I don't know if that is something that would be useful to us in this situation. Do you have any idea what?
If hooks is what it sounds like, then potentially yes.
Okay.
There's a design structure, called hooks that, like I said, I would have to look at the contract to know if that is what it's referring to. But it's essentially your way of saying, hey, check out this address or contact this address to provide a certain information. And if that's what it is, it would definitely be potentially a step in the right direction or provide that functionality. I'd have to look at the repo to verify, though.
Okay, thank you.
One other thing, and this isn't a super big deal, but something that we've talked about as we've talked about expanding our incentives programs and stuff like that, is just the means in which people are able to communicate with the blockchain through like the website and stuff. If we want to do, we were talking about the staking contract in which people could claim at any point in time from the staking contract block to block. It is very easy to just provide a base scan URL and say, here's how you interact with it. But at the same time, the less user-friendly the UI, it also does exclude people from participating. So that's something we try to keep in mind too. We don't want to just throw out features if we can't also provide a nice way in which people to interact with it, partially for safety. If we have a URL that we supply that you can trust versus saying, hey, just check out this contract on Polygon Scan or a base scan. So that's something else we also try to keep in mind.
Okay, no, that's good. Ty, I know you had some questions about kind of, going from chain to chain. Did you want to maybe see if Amir can help us out with that?
Yeah. Sorry. We were looking at different pools, and I suppose my question was, is the code that smart contracts are written in, is that consistent across different chains such as Polygon, Solana, Base, or is there a different code base to these smart contracts?
That's a good question. So generally speaking, oh, I'm so sorry, are we still talking? There was a little bit of a delay.
No, I'm fine, Amir.
So generally speaking, there's something called EVM or Ethereum Virtual Machine compatible. This includes Base, Polygon, Ethereum, Avalanche. Essentially, this is this way the machine works. And so long as you write code that it can understand, that's what's important. So there's actually two primary coding languages, Viper and Solidity. Solidity is much, much more common. But what these codes do is essentially it makes it into that machine readable code across all the networks as long as it's EVM compatible. So something like Solana, it's not compatible with. But any of these other EVM networks, which is many of the big players, anything, like I said, anything when you're developing on this level, probably EVM. Solana doesn't really have that much capability. Bitcoin obviously doesn't. But yes, it's pretty straightforward. All of the code is kind of plug and chug on other networks. There are nuances. There's these things called precompiles and other security risks you need to take into consideration if you're deploying to other networks. But the code itself will work across them, and that's not really too big of a concern. Anything written on one network more or less should work on another.
Great. So, and that answers my next question, which was when we move to the TELcoin network, because it's EVM compatible, then the move will be fairly straightforward. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Obviously, as time goes on, we want to update things and change contracts. So I have no idea what versions of the contracts we will put out on TELcoin network when it's around. That said, any of the ones we have in production today would work. If it's not broken, don't fix it. We want to move it over. Everything works as is. So that part's very easy.
Great. So going back to the wider discussion, because of this incompatibility with Solana, that really rules out playing with Solana pools, whereas with Base we can play because it's EVM compatible. That's my understanding.
to a little bit of nuance to that is you can have bridging systems that are essentially supposed to cross networks in that way. You have like the Axelar bridge, which for the most part just dealt with Cosmos-based chains, now also incorporates EVM change. So you're not necessarily excluded from doing it on these other networks. The code that you currently have doesn't work, though. You would need a whole set of new code and infrastructure and stuff. But also the bridging system does add a extra layer of complexity. Certain bridges are easy to work. For example, when we map for base or an a layer 2 EVM compatible one, a lot of those things work very easily outside the box. The entire network is based off of checkpointing and working with Ethereum, which is where Telcoin is native to. But once you start stepping away from that, it's possible, but you also introduce slightly higher security risk. So I'm not saying it's not possible to do stuff like that with Solana, but generally speaking, I think at least for now, sticking with both on development time as well as security time, we might want to stick to considering EVM chains. But if there's a real need, we can explore that. But the amount of work involved in going to one of those other chains that's not EVM compatible does increase dramatically.
No, that answers the question. I think provides clarity exactly on what we're thinking and avoiding exploits with bridges that are untested and all that sort of thing. So no, that's been very helpful, Amir. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Are there any other questions that I can address?
I don't think so. Thank you for your time, Amir. Awesome, man.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, very much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Amir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll be on the platform council meeting. I believe it's later today in an hour or so. So I'm going to hop off to prepare for that. But everybody's welcome to go listen to that one as well. And if you have any questions in the chat that you think of later, you're welcome to ask me then if that works for everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Amir.
Awesome.
Yeah,
no problem.
appreciate it.
Have a wonderful day, you guys. I will hopefully see some of you later.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye.
Good. Okay. Well, that clears up a lot of things. That helps. Okay. So Solana, we'll just axe that for now, and that could be a later discussion if we ever want to do that. But all right. So let's continue to focus on kind of base and maybe look at these V3 pools potentially on Polygon as well. So, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it is interesting because because that V3 pool that I just sent you a link to, I set up, I don't know, over a year ago. I think that $300 of liquidity is still mine. I think it's on there, but because I did some full range, because I set it up full range to get the pricing right. And then I did some concentration on top of that. So I had multiple, and you can set up multiple, you can pull your liquidity multiple times in the same pool at different ranges. So that's another interesting thing about that. But anyway, that pool's there if you guys want to play around with it, because that does add instant liquidity that is useful to the Telcoin app swaps. So mess around with it if you feel implied. But we should also maybe make that a V4 pool. But I want to verify with Will that the aggregators like 0x and 1inch on Polygon would be using a V4 pool before we would do that. So I'll check into that.
Okay, no, that sounds good. Okay, was there any other questions, comments, concerns from the council before we kind of wrap up? Going once, going twice. Okay. Good stuff. All right. I assume everybody's okay with the agenda and timing or not the agenda, because we'll get that as we get closer. But obviously, next council meeting will be February 19th. Everybody's okay with that?
Yeah. Maybe anything from the community. Give them another chance to join in. Boo or Liberty, I see on there. Coops.
The usual crowd is here. Yeah. Yeah, we'll give it a minute here to see if anybody wants to join in. But yeah, if not, we'll reconvene in a couple of weeks, and obviously continue the communication on the TELx Discord channel as well. And just as a reminder, I'll reach out to Grant to get an update on kind of where we are with the analytics side of things, and kind of see when we can kind of get the development of that kind of started.
Yeah, I see you've given a couple of links there in the comments, Mike. So I'll just explore. We don't need to sit down after this.
Okay. No problem. Yeah, take a look at it. That super bridge is how you bridge over. But yeah, take a look at it. And if you have any questions, just hit me up on chat, or we can talk about it next time.
Yeah, cool. All right, lads. Good meeting. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Sounds good. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Take care, guys. Bye.